We're delighted to be introducing this panel, something very close to my own heart, and why I'm actually here at SoccerX is talking about why footballers do care and how they get involved in social opportunities away from the field of football. And we're joined by two very special guests today. Firstly, to my left, I'd like to introduce Joe Tung, the CEO of Tongue-Tied Media, a player agent and sports agency working extensively with high-profile athletes in the game of football, and a true legend of the game. Before I introduce him, I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to take us all on a trip back through memory lane with a short video, and then we'll come back.
Gone up on the far side. Gascoigne will take the free kick. Walker is actually cut beyond the pitch. Sterling and right! Got the touch! England have the lead. Mark Wright, the scorer. Timely goal for England.
Right in here of all people, 1-0 Liverpool, and that is a rarity for Mark Wright.
Giggs on the run, White's with him.
Barnes.
Seven red shirts in there. Wright is one of them, and he scored on his return to the side. Mark Wright breaks the deadlock in the Merseyside derby. Only hope remains. All together now. All together now. Together now, in no man's land, together, all together now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to introduce a true legend of the game, Mark Wright. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Before, actually, we come to you, I'll start with Joe, so everyone can relax after those glorious moments for England. Joe, you are a player agent. You're working with many high-profile male and female athletes in the game now. The purpose of this discussion was really to look at some of the pressures, first of all, that face professional footballers on and off the field. Commercially, you're obviously involved with these players. What transactions, what time do these players actually have when they finish training, when they finish playing? Maybe you can give some examples of how players are treated, what time they have away from football to themselves, and what they do.
Okay, so I think there's a myth that players go in for training at 10 a.m. and finish at midday, which might well have been the case back in your day. I don't want to judge now, but you know, it's completely different now. I mean, the guys I work with, most of them they might drop the kids off at school and then they will be at training at 8:45, 8:45, start training 9, 10 o'clock. more often than not, managers now do double sessions. If you're not in a double session, you will probably have some sort of physio, yoga, swimming, pool work, something. So you won't actually physically have time until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think the myth that, oh, you only work 2 hours a day and you've got all this spare time and you just sit on your computers all day, needs to be ditched. So, I mean, all of my guys do charity work. All footballers do charity work. You know, it's part of their contract. It's written into their contract that you have to do a set amount of hours per week for charity work. We just don't hear about it. It's not sexy, is it? It's not something that the media necessarily want to cover. You know, footballer makes appearance at charity. What do you want me to do with that? We can have a nice photo shoot, but ultimately, unless it's going in the club programme or on the club website, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. But they do enjoy it. You know, they do. All of my guys have one charity that they work with in particular, so there'll be an ambassador for that, or they've got their own foundation. I mean, Jason Roberts is someone I've worked with for a lot of years. He was the first player to actually have his own foundation, and since retiring last year, he actually works full-time for the foundation. That he does a bit of media work, but ultimately he works full-time. We were talking about this earlier and about how the amount of requests I get from charities, and you know, I'd love to say yes to every person every time, but I think unless the player has an affinity with that charity, often it's just lip service. So there's no benefit for either party. There's not a whole lot of benefit to the charity if a player's just coming down and they're a bit tired after training, or they don't really want to be there, or they don't actually get what the charity is trying to do, or they get the message they're trying to bring across. So unless they have an affinity, so a family member's been affected by that charity, or there's a real reason for them to do it, I kind of have to say, just pick one charity and stick with that charity.
Right. So Mark. Mark, you've obviously played at the very highest level, taking a trip down memory lane now. What was it like as a player? Sorry?
I tried.
Oh, you tried. What was it like? What was a day for you like when you were in Liverpool? How much time did you have to yourself?
Do you know, I think it's all about the individual. If you are that way inclined back in the day, then you would come in at 10, you would finish at 12, and then you're off golfing or off to the pub. That's what happened in them days. But if you were keen to succeed and keen to improve, then said players then would go and train in the afternoon. From when I got in as a young boy, I never stopped training. Whether it was go play head tennis in the afternoon to try and improve. All of us can always improve. And some of the players, a football career is very short. And if you don't take every opportunity to improve yourself and keep improving right to the very end, I think when you finish, you may have a little hang-up about that and said, maybe I should have done more. And I think if you finish your career and you're always asking, what if, then you haven't done exactly what you should have done. And to be blessed to be playing in a game that is the biggest thing in the world. You know, football is the biggest stage in the world. And to give yourself every opportunity to succeed and to earn money and to be idolized by the fans and you know, all the world over. If you come out thinking, what if, then you've not done yourself justice for yourself, for your family, and for the fans that you've played for.
But football consumes your life at that time as well, right? You're, even when you're not playing and training, you're living and breathing it. You're watching other games. You're feeling the emotions behind the scenes. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand in your head, how much space you've got to think about anything else other than playing football.
Do you know what? I mean, I've got a lot of good friends in the game, and there are a lot of people out there who did everything right and gave themselves the best opportunities. But, you know, before a game on a Thursday, you know, there's all this myth that players go out all the time. Some did, but they let themselves down in life. If you're talking about the real people who succeed and become a legend and go on to maybe play for their country, they're the ones that are dedicated and give themselves every opportunity, you know, to go out. And more often than not, they're the ones that go home to have a family life and do things with their children, and that keeps them on an even keel and keeps them grounded. Whereas if you keep going out and you live in the high life, then all of a sudden that can lead you astray. And I think when you see today the opportunities that the players have and the money that they have, that they go to the next level, and that next level finishes a lot of good players.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I want to come on to what you're doing now and come back to you as well later, Joe. So we're just going to play another short video to introduce some of the work that Mark's engaging in now.
Hi everybody, I'm Mark Wright. I'm absolutely honoured to be the new ambassador at Foster Care Associates. I'm here today to launch the new 10K campaign, which is to recruit new foster carers. And hopefully together, we can be very, very successful. My 10K campaign is all about the recruitment of foster carers. It's 10,000 short in this country, and we aim to make a big dent in that to make sure that we get a lot more on board in the following years. And we need to make more people aware and conscious, and maybe get into the sort of people that we want to play on their heartstrings and saying, listen, these are the young people of our country that we need to be looking after better. They want some stability in their lives, and we're looking for people that can bring that. They can get stability, they can get love, they can get affection, they can, be taken here, there and everywhere. I have 4 children of my own and 1 foster child, and it all feels so natural. Well, my wife and I, we decided to work for Core Assets because we felt that it was the right place to be so that we could try and help improve children's lives and try and bring a little bit of success to their lives. I actually felt that when we got there, everything felt like home, and it was a real homely organisation, so that was the biggest reason. My wife calls me a bouncy Labrador. Every time I wake up, I'm up and at 'em. Let's be positive, let's be proactive in the things that we want to do. I'm a strong character, and I like to push things forward, and I like to get things done. If I could do that in fostering, then I would consider myself a success, I think. If we all played our little part to make sure that we don't leave children in this country on their own, and we can recruit as many as we can that are of the right ilk and the caring people to come into this and help the children, then that's fantastic. I just think there's nothing better than the laughter of children.
Is that the end? All right, there's another one. Is it more? I think it's more.
When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case, I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When the evening shadows and the stars appear and there is no one there to dry your tears, I could hold you for a million years to make you feel my love. I know you haven't made your mind up yet, but I will never do you wrong. I've known it from the moment that we met, no doubt in my mind where you belong. I'd go hungry, I go black and blue, I go crawling down the avenue. No, there's nothing that I wouldn't do to make you feel my love.
Very nice. Thank you, Mark. Anyone need some tissues? You all right? Okay. So, Mark, we've had an overview there of some of the work you're doing. Do you want to elaborate a bit more? What provoked you to get involved? What motivated you to support fostering?
I won't go on for too long, but we're talking about footballers before. Footballers when they're playing, they're in their own little world, in their own little bubble, whereby they're protected by the club, they're protected by their families, and you don't usually look outside that. You know, you're looking after your own. You're thinking about from one minute to the next. You're looking about football, how to improve, how to play against the opposition. It's so intense. It wasn't until I came out of football with my wife Sue. She was a barrister with children, and some of the cases that came home were the most upsetting that I think I've ever seen. I won't tell you about too many of them, but it opened my eyes, and I wanted to do something about it. Having 4 children from a previous marriage, I thought, you know, I'm a good dad, I'm a good parent. I wanted to now see if we could help children of our country who have had a bad upbringing, whether they've been abused, neglected, you know, just left on their own. Some of them haven't been fed. The 4 that came to us at first, they were ranged from 3, 6, 8, and 12. And they hadn't even been to the pictures, and that's in the cinema. That's in this country that's happening, is whereby when we took them, their little eyes popped out of their heads. They'd never seen anything like it before. They turned up at our house with black bin liners full of clothes, not even a suitcase. And that was very, very upsetting. And so my wife and I, we thought we've got to do something about it, get into the fostering world, and the rest is history. I've been a foster carer with my wife for 7 years. Would I have been in it had I have not met Sue? The answer probably would be, I've got to be honest, would probably be no. But I'm glad that I'm involved in it, because for all the challenges and all the bits and pieces that I did in football, there is nothing more challenging or rewarding as what you do with the children. Because if you can gain their trust, and like I said before, put a smile on their face and give them a sense of belonging and a home for good, as you saw in the video there, what is better? Because I always say when we do some events, which I'll get onto in a moment, we always say to the children, it's not their fault. They've been let down by their parents. And that is exactly where we are. So when that happens, people of our age can all look after themselves. We can go and get a job. We can decide where we're going and what we're doing. The children of this world have no choice. They're pulled from pillar to post and they're told what to do. And some of them, when they don't have a home, somewhere that they know that they're going to get a bed to sleep in, they know they're going to get a hot meal, they know that they've got a sense of belonging, and we have to earn their respect as much as, you know, and vice versa. And it's a long process to get to when I say convert, it sounds like a terrible word, but to change them children into feeling that they are around us and that we can, and they trust us. Then that's a hard process, but it's the most rewarding. And all we try to do is open it out through football, which is a global thing, watched all over the world. There's nothing bigger than football as a viewed sport or a viewed entity. So we try and spread the word through football to raise awareness for fostering and adoption, so that we can bring as many in as we can to look after the children. And if we can do that, I mean, 10,000 is not a big ask for any of us. 10,000 in a country of multi-millions, really, we should be doing better. And I think it's raising the profile and raising the awareness that is the most important to get foster carers through the door. I mean, Sue and I, we adopted our little girl, and every week, Sue will come up to me with a smile on her face and going, and you know that there's something else around the corner, and it was like, there's a group of 4, and I'm thinking, I'm getting too old now for 4. I mean, listen, 2 will be great. I'll take 2 more in, but do me a favor. I mean, you saw from the video there, I had long hair, and now I've lost all my hair. And that is from doing bits and pieces. But listen, we wish to, it may not be for you as a person, as a foster carer, or a prospective adoptee, but we're saying in your network of friends, your network of people that you may know and they may know, to actually pass that message on and say, please consider it, you never know what's going to happen. And if we all open our eyes to it, then I think that 10,000 is eradicated. It can be overnight. but it's actually getting the word out there that is the hardest thing. And, you know, we have a company with my wife and my partner at the back there, Darren Clack, called Premier Legends, where we do corporate events around the country, and we're starting to go global now as well. So it's not just for here. We're talking about, you know, the Syrian crisis at the moment. There's going to be a big influx of young children, and I think people saw it on the news the other day. A girl of 12 was bringing up her 3 younger brothers and sisters living in a tent, a 12-year-old. How, you tell me how that can be right in this world when we're all here. I mean, loads of people here will go back to their own homes and they'll put the dinner on and they'll have a steak dinner, whatever it is. They might go down the pub to meet their mates. These children are living in a tent. These children, and the biggest thing I can tell you now is my wife did this to me, and this is the biggest lesson I had in life. Noughts and crosses board, and there's 9 spaces on the board. Sue said to me, write in every one of them, imagine you're a child, and put into each one of them spaces something that means something to you. So you go, your mum and dad, your grandparents, your brothers and sisters, your house, your dog, your toys, your pets, whatever it may be. Sue went, cross 3 of them off. So I did, you know, the easy one. It'd be toys. Your wife? No, it wouldn't be that. So you'd knock 3 off, then you're left with 6. And then you turn around, she goes, take another 3 off. And of course, now that's getting harder. So you take 3 off and you're left with 3, which usually would be your mum and dad, your brothers and sisters, and your grandparents. She said, knock another one off. Now it's family, and you're going, I can't. And she said, no, just for this exercise, knock another one off. So that one went, another one went, so you're left with 1. And she said, cross that off. I looked at her to say, why are they all gone? She went, that's a foster child. They're taken away, maybe overnight when they come back from school. There's your bin liner if they can't find a case or a bag, and they're taken away. Everything else is left behind. And they may never, ever see their parents or their brothers and sisters ever again. And I think when Sue did that to me, I went, whoa, I've got to do something about this. I need to get involved to see if we can spread the word through a football environment, which I said before is the biggest, to try and raise awareness, to try and see how many people can we get involved. And we have a business, and I make no bones about that. We have a business where we are a Legends-led event where we take them to run corporate events and whatever, and then we donate. We take the children out on days out to make sure, because if we gave money to the local authorities or whoever it may be, that gets lost in transition and on wages. We're talking about giving them memories so that they can remember something. And like I said before, the 4 that came to us had never been to the cinema. And like I said before again, how embarrassing is that? That in this day and age and what we're doing, that they haven't even been to the cinema. We're trying to raise the awareness. My wife and I, we will be going back into it. We had to give our daughter a time of settling in as well, even though she's been with us 7 years, to get used to the idea of now she's our daughter. And she even changed her initials when we went to christen her to follow her mother's initials. So it's exactly the same as Susan Elizabeth Wright, and now it's Sonia Elizabeth Wright, because she felt that was important to her to be just like her mum now. So we will be going back into it, because I'm told what to do, like most men. But it's for a love of children, to try and make sure globally each and every one of them are really, really looked after. Because like I say to them in these events, it's not their fault. And for all of us going home to all our nice homes and do whatever we want, all I ask is really to think about how could you help? And if we all could help and help these children, like I said, this problem would be eradicated overnight if we really pushed the word out.
Thank you, Mark. Well, wow, I don't know. Do footballers care? I'm pretty sure that we can say yes in Mark's case. No, what really strikes me from everything you're saying about this is that you, footballers, at the end of the day, are a human being. You're a person who has an emotion, and something triggered you. In this case, your wife presented a situation, and at that moment, you wanted to do something about that. And I think everyone has a trigger at some point and wants to do more. And for you, it was after playing because of whatever reason that is, but it happens.
No, you don't get a lot of time when you're in football.
Right.
But I mean, I was talking to when he stopped kicking me. I spoke Maxi Miller's in the audience there. I saw him before, and I was talking to him before, and he was telling us stories, unbelievable stories about what players are doing to give back to charities and give back to everything that's going on in this country. But like you said before, it never gets mentioned, and that's a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, the papers like bad news, when really it should be good news. And the good news story is the likes of people. He told us a story earlier on about Didier Drogba paying over the odds for a Range Rover. And he just bought his wife one. He bought himself one, and he said, well, and Frank Lampard said, well, buy one for your missus. He went, all right. So he got into a bidding war, and he paid way over the tops to give back because it was going to charity. Now, that's a story that needs to be put out there. Them sort of stories that, are majorly important for, I'm talking about the overall picture of footballers. Forget about their drinking and the odd thing about whether it's drugs or womanizing and whatever it may be. Put the good stories in there, because I'll tell you what, the sporting world and the football world are doing major things, and it never gets recognized, and that's down to the media, and it should be addressed.
Yeah, perfect. Joe.
Just on that, I was just saying, I mean, obviously it's changed since you played, but now with social media, it's such a godsend for me as an agent, but also for the players, because they can put their own message out there. So all the players, whenever they're doing something, they're in control of what they're putting out there. Like Jason's taking a team to the Homeless World Cup from Grenada, because the charity's moved to Grenada, which is his sort of home country. So we're taking a team of young Grenadians to the Homeless World Cup in Amsterdam next week. And these lads, they didn't even have passports. Like, I've spent the last 4 months with the Grenadian government trying to sort out passports for homeless people. I mean, it's insane, but we've made it happen. And next week, Jason is taking them over to Amsterdam. Now, that sort of stuff, it probably won't get into the papers, but at least Jason has a Twitter, the Jason Roberts Foundation has a Twitter, we can put it out there. And the other thing I just wanted to pick up on what you said is, it's kind of twofold why footballers get involved in charities. I mean, obviously, it happened to you once you retired because you met Sue and you had that trigger. I mean, I look after Fabrice Mwamba, so it's kind of natural that now he does so much charity work because of what happened to him. But if that hadn't happened to him, I don't think he would have got involved in that sort of thing until he finished playing. Someone like Jason Roberts, he didn't necessarily have that trigger, but he was so grateful from the role models that he had as a younger person. He just realised how privileged he was to have, his family were all sporty, Cyril Regis, John Regis, they all came down, they were his role models. And he saw that in the area he grew up in, Stonebridge, right next to Wembley, he didn't have those role models. So he kind of triggered onto the fact that I'm actually privileged. Nothing terrible has happened to me, but I'm privileged. So I think you do need that trigger. And if you don't get that trigger, almost you need someone around you, be it your management, be it your agent, be it your football club, to say, come and try this and you'll get something from it. So, say you've just lost in the FA Cup, or you've just got knocked out of a World Cup or something. It is quite difficult as an agent to say, oh, by the way, you've got to be at the Heart Care charity at 4 p.m. Don't forget it. Because as a footballer, as you all know, I mean, I don't know, but I can empathise slightly, is you can't think of anything worse than having to face the public or go and be nice to people. But actually, once you get there and once you're in that moment, you realise it doesn't really matter what happened on Saturday. It doesn't really matter what happened last night, because the sort of joy or the reception that you get from those people that need you, or that you inspire, or that you just make their day for an hour, that's really important. So it's kind of, I don't want to be banging on about you've got to do this charity work, you've got to do this, but I do, because I know that once they get there, they'll realise how important it is.
Sure. So just before we open up a few questions to everyone, I want to, can you name drop a few more for us? Can you give us some other examples of some players, maybe some of the ladies? We heard from Annie earlier about how much the female players at the moment obviously getting a lot of profile awareness because of the World Cup. But they're staying behind after every game to meet the fans and to spend time and learn from other people. Any other players that do care?
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting for me, because I've always looked after male footballers, and then a couple of years ago I started working with Eniola Aluko, who's Chelsea in England, who was speaking this morning. And I mean, Eni is an ambassador for the Chelsea Foundation, so does a lot of charity work, does a lot of mentoring, because she believes in her role as a role model to young women. But again, I think they're more aware. I do think the women are more aware of their influence because they do see themselves as role models and they do see the role they have to play in promoting the sport. I think footballers, the sport's kind of promoted itself. You almost don't need, you don't need to be a role model essentially because football it has the platform already. Whereas I think with the women, they are aware of having to show how much they care and having to give back because they're so grateful to the audience that come and the reception they get.
Fair enough. Any points on that?
Do you know, I think all footballers, male or female, owe it to their fans and to the club for what's going on to be that role model, to be out there and do the right things, say the right things. And I think they can all learn from, you know, the media sometimes is very hard for some people, but they can still get themselves involved in more things. I think when you're in a football world, you're in your own little bubble. It's very insular, you know, you're looking after yourself, you're looking after your family, and that's about it. You know, you're told, like saying, to go to a do and off you go to a function. But other than that, you're with your teammates or your mates and you'll go for a drink and you socialise or you go out for a meal. What needs to be done is like, again, Maxi was telling me today that Barcelona, when you sign for Barcelona, 1% of their wages, the club take back. They put it into the foundation for the players or ex-players or ex-staff. It might be the cleaner. If they fall on hard times, they can look after all the people that have been associated with that club. And I think that's a fantastic thing. That's a small percentage of what's going on. And do they really need that small percentage these days? I don't think they do. And I really do think that every time, if you're blessed to be a footballer and you raise, you know, in your status and and what you do in life, then I do believe you should always give back. And I think you should always sign the autographs. I mean, there are these autograph hunters that want you to sign 100, and what they're doing, they're going and selling them on eBay. But if someone comes up with you with an autograph and you say, and there's one or two, you sign them and say, thank you very much. A lot of people dismiss that these days, and I find that, you know, wrong in this day and age, because it's the fans that have made them, as well as themselves, but the fans that support them, their status has improved by their, you know, being adored by the fans that they're playing for. So they do owe something back, and they do need to be role models. I don't think it's an ask. I think it's a tell with players these days, because sometimes it goes over the top, and they need to be reminded who they are. They're nothing. It's not special. You're a footballer, and you're doing a job. Get on with it, but let's see if we can give something back to the community. Let's see if we can give something back to the children or the elderly of this world, because the elderly need looking after as well. And there's lots of people. That's another big love of mine. You know, the elderly have done it all before, and they deserve to be looked after in their old age. So the kids and the elderly, all of us in between, get off your backside, get a job, try and help, raise awareness, raise money for the people that really need it.
Thanks, Mark. Everyone. Okay, just want to throw that out to you guys now first. A few people, maybe there's a few questions for Mark or for Joe. Yes, in the middle there.
Thank you. I've worked in football for many years, and I completely agree that actually dragging footballers to things they're not passionate about doesn't have as good a response as finding out what they're interested in and then trying to maximise that. But at the point at which that footballer has that light bulb moment, it's often after they've finished playing. And do you think that the agents and the managers or the management teams are the best place to advise that player on how they kind of move that forwards?
Depends on the agent. I mean, I would say I am best. I mean, I'm a trustee of Jason's foundation. I'm helping Michael Carrick set up his foundation at the moment. I'm a director of Women in Football, which is another charitable organisation. So me personally as an agent, I would say, of course I am, but I agree with you. There's a lot of agents that aren't that interested in that side of the game. And so then you may choose to use the PFA or someone like Dan who's back in football. You know, you may need a specialist organisation to help you with that. So I think it just depends on the person.
Yeah, because it seems like there's a slight disconnect in that area for some players. I've spoken to players who are interested, but they're not really sure where to go because their agent really is interested in their commercial opportunities. So I just wondered if you thought there was potential for other areas.
Do you know what? It's people like the ex-footballers, like I can see Ozzy Ardiles there as well, is that agents, some people love them, some people hate them. it's a requirement these days for them to be there. But I genuinely believe that there should be, and I've thought about it, and I'm thinking about it now strongly, is maybe to get involved, but just specialise in defenders, because it's something. Whereas it's easy if someone's playing well, you can get them the money, you'll get them a transfer. You know, if they're a good player. But I'm on about maybe getting involved to say, listen, to give something back. I'm not after sometimes. I'm not saying about you because I know it's a job, but we're talking about. Some agents take a percentage of their wages, and that's for the length of their contract, okay? And I totally understand that. What I'm on about really doing is saying, getting some of these young boys that if they're not happy, what do the agents do? Okay, we'll move you. In they go, they move them on. Because when they move, they earn money. Sometimes I'm saying I have a little bit of loyalty, and I'm saying about, that's why I'm thinking about it, and I thought about it very strongly to say, listen, I've been there, I got the T-shirt, I've done a lot of things right, and I've done a lot of things wrong. So through advice, you can give, maybe you can give back. And I don't think there's enough. Even some of the big agencies, they should get ex-footballers involved to educate them, because they've been there, seen it. And I don't think there's enough of that going on. A lot of them are accountants and they're lawyers and they're X, Y, and Z. And I think it's about time that maybe a lot of people started addressing how can we educate these footballers more? And they would take advice maybe off someone like me, or Maxi or Ozzy, and they say, listen, behave yourself, go and train, go and get on with it. That'll all come to you, but sit still because this is the best place for you. That's what I think there needs to be in the game at this moment in time, and more of it. More maybe players that have come out, twiddling their thumbs, not knowing what to do, but to get onto that side of it so they can really help youngsters and the older players come to terms with what's going to come around the corner.
Going back to your point, setting up a foundation is not easy. It's actually really difficult, and you are answerable to a lot of people. You're answerable to the charity commission. I'm answerable to a lot of people as a trustee and as a director. And so I think you make a really, really good point that a player may come to an agent and go, right, I want a foundation. Everyone's got a foundation. I want to do a ball. I want to do this. I want to raise some money for my area in wherever. And the agent says, okay, yeah, keep him happy. Right, we'll set up a foundation. And then nothing happens. And that's 10 times as worse as not having a foundation. I'd rather you didn't have a foundation. So I think you make a really valid point that maybe there is a gap for experts, which I think is what you do. Experts in helping set up a proper foundation and do, if you're going to do it properly. If not, go and be an ambassador for a charity that already exists. Would be my advice.
We need more good people, basically. No. Anyone else? Any other questions? Jane? At the back first? Yeah, why not? Oh. Sorry, Jane.
Sorry, have you seen any examples of where clubs have pushed their current players to do more charity work and things like that? Because coming from Arsenal, the community, we are having a constant battle with the commercial guys who, rightly or wrongly have, the priority over the current players' assets for various purposes. But have you found examples where clubs have been the ones to push the initiative for their existing players to do charity work and support the club's existing community departments?
Absolutely. I mean, with my guys, so Michael does a lot for the Man United Foundation. Ennie, as I said, is an ambassador for the Chelsea Foundation. Jason Roberts, when he was at Reading at Blackburn, was, because he's so eloquent, was wheeled out every week to do something. But I was, on the flip side, it's actually, sometimes it can be really hard. Like, I clash with the club because I will have commitments for them, charitable or otherwise, and the club may have a really good reputation in the charitable sector, and then a new manager will come in, and actually it's not on their radar at all because they just want to get their head down and win some matches and have their players in for double training, and they might have we all do pool training, we all do yoga, you're in for yoga till 8 p.m. at night, or whatever that manager's philosophy may be. And so actually everything that you've booked for the next 6 months has to go out of the window because unfortunately when a player's a player, football comes first, and I totally get that. That's, your training, your relationship with the manager is far more important, unfortunately, than anything else you do outside. So that does have to come first, and so we do have clashes with management on that because what the manager says goes. But the clubs that I've had experience with working with they've always had excellent community organisations, and they have always used my players. But then I work with very eloquent, good people. The players that I work with are the kind of players that would get selected to do most of the charity work.
I think the problem we've seen as well is that the clubs, they assume that everyone is going to have, again, an emotion to that cause. So they'll send half the squad to the local hospice, and yet most of them have never been in that situation before and don't know how to react or how to engage with the kids. So it's actually counterproductive, but still the club do it because they believe as a club it means something to them, and it ticks a box almost, unfortunately, dare I say it. But it was nice hearing earlier from UNICEF talking about the UNICEF Barcelona example, where sometimes it does work in that environment. Iniesta came out in public and said that makes him proud. That's part of the reason he wants to wear that shirt, is because UNICEF and what it stands for on his chest every day, it can be the icing on the cake for some players. And hopefully in an ideal world, maybe we will have another generation of caring footballers coming through, young talents that feel, recognise where they come from. Hope that answers some of your question. Jane.
Thanks. About 2 years ago, I've been coaching for Hope, and we worked with the PFA and the Premier League to send a group of Premier League scholars out to South Africa so that as 18-year-olds they could experience seeing what football does in townships with really poor kids. And that made a massive difference to those young men because they saw for themselves how football can be used for good. And this is a shameless plug, but we have a Football for Good Awards coming up in December, and it'd be great if, I think both the speakers, Joe and Mark, if you could get involved in supporting that event, either nominating yourselves or your players for the Player Impact Award, because what we want to do there is show what players and clubs and NGOs and a whole range of groups are doing for good using football, and that's a night to kind of celebrate that and really highlight all the great stuff that is going on.
I can endorse that because I've been to South Africa twice and been to the townships. And the first time we went there with Liverpool, it was, they're putting a show on for us at the school. And then we're going to coach them first. They were sharing football boots. Someone was on the pitch with the football boots, and then they had to come off, and they put them on, and on they went. So they didn't even have football boots. Some of them were going around barefoot, but it was dirt, and there were stones and everything, and they were cutting their feet, and we go, whoa, no, come off. We had to pull them off, and then we go in afterwards for a reception, a food reception, and these children were outside the windows, and one of the people, I said, well, why don't you get the children in? Let the children have this. And they said, no, they're all right. And I said, well, they look hungry, as you would. And they said, no, they'll be all right, because they're used to it. And I went, what do you mean they're used to it? They said, well, their last meal will be here at school on a Friday, and they probably won't eat again until they come back in on the Monday. And there was all this food out there, and I went, well, I'm sorry, I can't eat that. I can't eat that if the children, no. I said, and I told the boys, and the boys went, no, we won't eat that, give that to children. So in the end, they took it all out. They weren't happy about giving it to children, but we made them go and give it to them, because at the end of the day, we don't need to be eating that, and I'm not doing that in front of them kids. So anything that I can do to try and, if it's raising awareness, if it's coming to speak, whatever it may be, just give us a card to my wife, and I'd love to get involved. So that would be a pleasure from my point of view.
And I think you've just hit the nail on the head. That's the point. You have to experience it. You had to visually see it. And you said yourself, footballers are in a bubble. And so unless we get them out of the bubble and make them experience something or make them see something or feel something, you don't often get through to them.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. There's probably a few more questions, but we've shamelessly gone over time because I like this subject, so sorry. Thank you all very much for joining us. Again, to summarise, I think the opening question was, do footballers care? And I think we can certainly say that they do. There's a number of examples here. I would love to say there's a blanket response that every footballer cares, but the reality is they're living in a pressured bubble where they get a lot of media attention, and they have to focus on the game and their job, and everyone's a human being. So hopefully through these kind of forums and discussions, we can raise the topics more and excite more people about the opportunities through football and not just the responsibilities that people place upon footballers and clubs. And we would love to talk to you all more later today or tomorrow. There's also one little shout out for Street Football World. If Jürgen's here, I'm not sure. There's a website which is homing all of these discussions called unleashfootball.com. And we want to sort of raise anyone who's got input on this, or maybe they've got ideas of what could be done better or projects they want to initiate. We want to home it all in here so that together with all these amazing organisations we can actually work to a better good, and we look forward to your awards, Jane. Okay, thank you.